Good morning students. Today I'll be talking on oxygen therapy and artificial ventilation. These are very important topics clinically and also practically. These may be asked as short questions and very short questions also. So I'll be covering the topic under these objectives. First we'll see the definition of oxygen therapy and the physiology behind oxygen therapy and the types of oxygen therapy, that is orthobaric and hyperbaric, and the side effects of oxygen therapy. Oxygen may be classified as an element, a gas, and a drug. So this therapy, therapy itself means treatment. So we are using oxygen for treatment. So it is the administration of oxygen at concentrations greater than that in room air to treat or prevent hypoxemia. The major reason for oxygen therapy is hypoxia. Hypoxia is deficiency of oxygen at tissue level, and hypoxia O2 tension in the arterial blood. So again I will repeat, hypoxia is deficiency of oxygen at tissue level and hypoxemia is reduced O2 tension in the arterial blood. So these two words, the differences you remember. So hypoxia is the main indication for oxygen therapy. So we have already seen in the previous class different types of hypoxia: hypoxic, anemic, stagnant and histotoxic. So you already know the causes and features of all these types of hypoxia. So in which hypoxia the oxygen therapy is most useful and most benefited for the patient. So that is the first one, hypoxic hypoxia. So it is very helpful and benefit for the patient, oxygen therapy. And the anemic hypoxia and stagnant hypoxia, it is of limited use. Okay. So because in these conditions oxygen is already available in the alveoli. Some extra oxygen can be transported in dissolved state in blood when alveolar oxygen is increased to the maximum level, and this extra oxygen may be the difference sometimes between life and death. So in histotoxic hypoxia, so it is not at all of any use, because what happens here, the tissue metabolic enzyme system is simply incapable of utilizing the oxygen that is delivered. So that's why how much ever oxygen you give, the metabolic system, tissue system is itself incapable of utilizing the oxygen. That's why in histotoxic, if you give oxygen therapy, there is no use at all. Now coming to the indications of oxygen therapy. So as I have already told you, hypoxia is the first important indication where you will be giving the oxygen as treatment. And the others are acute respiratory failure. So what is the respiratory failure? It is not a disease. It is a condition which is produced by the various underlying pathology starting from CNS to various other systems. So in respiratory failure, we have to give oxygen therapy with caution because it is associated with hypercapnia, that is increased PO2. So the central chemoreceptors in these patients are inhibited following excessive overdrive by PCO2. So what happens in that situation? Whatever amount of respiration is there, that is due to hypoxic stimulation of peripheral chemoreceptors. So if you give oxygen at this point, which will produce apnea by taking away this little hypoxic drive also, and will cause death due to direct depression of the respiratory center by severe hypoxia and hypercapnia. Okay, so in this acute respiratory failure, whatever respiration is there, that is because of the hypoxic drive by the peripheral chemoreceptors. So that's why we have to give oxygen by monitoring the patient condition. And acute myocardial infarction and cardiac failure, shock and hypermetabolic state induced by trauma, burns or sepsis, and then anemia, cyanide poisoning and CPR during cardiopulmonary respiration during anesthesia for surgery. So all these conditions we will give oxygen therapy. And coming to some of the important abbreviations you need to know. FiO2. So it is fraction of oxygen in the inspired gas. Normally it will be 0.21, that is 21%. And PaO2, partial pressure of oxygen in the arterial blood, that is 98 to 100 mmHg, 5 to 6 times of FiO2. And then saturation of hemoglobin in the arterial blood, that is SaO2, it will be 100%. And PvO2, partial pressure of oxygen in venous blood, that will be 40 mmHg. And SvO2, saturation of hemoglobin in venous blood, that will be 75%. So before going into details, you need to know all these short forms. So first of all, how to assess the oxygenation of the patient. So we have to first, when the patient comes, we have to see the clinical indicators like shortness of breath or dyspnea on exertion, and measure the inadequate oxygen saturations of the patient by invasive or non-invasive. So ABG, arterial blood gas analysis, which is very important. From that we can note the PaO2 and PaCO2 values. And pulse oximetry, so that is non-invasive method. So this you have maybe observed in the ICU patients. For the finger they will be keeping one device, so that will be detecting the saturation levels of the saturation of oxygen levels in the patient. So oxygen therapy is must whenever the PaO2 is less than 60 mmHg or the saturation SpO2 is less than 90%. So what is the normal saturation? It will be 100%. So if it is even less than 90%, we have to oxygenate the patient. And what is the partial pressure of oxygen? It should be less than 60 mmHg. So these two values you have to remember for giving or starting the oxygen therapy for a patient. So it should be PaO2 less than 60 mmHg and saturation of oxygen less than 90%. And coming to the sources of oxygen. So by seeing these pictures you can tell one is the oxygen cylinder and the other one is oxygen valve outlets, which you will be commonly seeing in the ICU setup. So to release oxygen safely and at a desirable rate, a regulator is used, and a reduction gas that shows the amount of oxygen in the tank, and a flow meter that regulates the control of oxygen in liters per minute. And oxygen is moistened by passing it through a humidifier to prevent the mucous membranes of the respiratory tree from becoming dry. So in this picture you can see there is a flow meter, pressure gauge, a screw cap, and the pressure reducing valve, safety valve, and the oxygen in the pipe in this humidifying cup, and the oxygen output and the flow adjuster. Okay, so for all this we'll be seeing this is the valve outlet, oxygen valve outlet, and for the oxygen cylinder what is present, it is a regulator will be present. So coming to the various oxygen therapy devices, we can divide them into variable performance or low flow oxygen delivery devices and fixed performance or high flow oxygen delivery devices. So in variable performance, so there is no capacity of oxygen delivered, that is by using nasal catheters or cannula, and small oxygen capacity of oxygen by using mask, simple face mask, and large oxygen capacity with are by using mask with bag. And the fixed performance are high airflow oxygen enrichment systems. Out of that, the Venti mask or Venturi mask is very popular one, and by using anesthesia circuits, and lastly ventilators. So these are the high oxygen flow systems. So we will see different types of oxygen delivery devices. one by one. The first one is nasal cannula, which is a low flow oxygen delivery system. So it is having simple plastic tube and the prongs which will be fitting into the nasal cavity. So we have to adjust the according to the patient's head. We have to adjust the plastic tubing here below the head. Okay, so here the nasal cannula is of low capacity, as I have already told you. It delivers 2 to 4 liters per minute, and it will be providing 28 to 35% of oxygen. And the next one is simple oxygen face mask. So here you can see in the picture, this is the oxygen face mask. So it is having a metal piece which conforms to the shape of the nose, and these are the ports, holes which are for exhalation, and this lower pipe is a oxygen source. Okay, from here the oxygen will be coming, so it will be having little more capacity than the nasal cannula. So these straps will be adjusted behind the head, so that will be fitting the mask over the nose. So here again the flow rate will be 2 to 6 liters per minute, and the capacity of oxygen is 35 to 50%. So the advantages and disadvantages of the face mask are advantages: it can provide increased delivery of oxygen for short period of time, that is for 12 hours like that. And disadvantages is that tight seal is required to deliver higher concentration, and it is difficult to keep the mask in position over nose and mouth, and there is potential for skin breakdown because of pressure and moisture over the areas, that is over the nose or over the cheeks and over the ears because of straps, and the patient will be feeling uncomfortable while eating or talking. So the next delivery device is partial rebreather mask. So here in the category, it will come under the category mask with bag. So here you can see this bag. It is also called Pali mask. So what happens here? The patient will be rebreathing some amount of expired air. So the advantages of this mask is client or patient can inhale room air through openings in the mask if oxygen supply is briefly interrupted. And the disadvantages are it requires tight seal, eating and talking becomes difficult, and the patient will be uncomfortable. So one more oxygen delivery device is non-rebreather mask. So it is again one of the type of mask with bag. You can see in the picture. The mask is placed over the nose and mouth, and then it is attached to a bag which is completely closed compared to the previous one, that is partial rebreather mask. So there we have seen it is halfway open, but here it is completely closed. So what happens when the patient exhales air, the one-way valve present in the mask here closes, and all of the expired air is deposited into the atmosphere, not the reservoir bag. In this way, the patient is not rebreathing any of the expired gas. And the advantages are that it delivers the highest possible oxygen concentration, and it is suitable for patient breathing spontaneously with severe hypoxemia. And the disadvantages are that it is impractical for long-term therapy, and the malfunction can cause CO2 buildup, and there is a chance of suffocation, and it is also a little bit expensive, and anyhow it will be uncomfortable for the patient. So the non-rebreathing mask flow rate will be higher. So it delivers highest possible oxygen concentration, that is up to 85%, and the flow rate will be 15 liters per minute. And coming to the one more delivery device, that is Venturi mask, which is a high flow oxygen delivery device. Oxygen ranges from 40 to 50%, and the flow rate will be 4 to 15 liters per minute. The mask is constructed so that there is a constant flow of room air blended with a fixed concentration of oxygen. So these are the different color coded Venturi mask which you will be fitting into the face mask. So blue color, here you can see the printing on the Venturi valve, 24% with flow rate of 2 liters per minute. Here 28 with 4 liters per minute. Like that, different color codings with increasing delivery flow rate and also increasing oxygen percentage. The next one is oxygen hood. So it is used for newborn babies who can breathe on their own but still need the extra oxygen. So it is a plastic dome or a box with warm, moist oxygen inside. Okay, so some babies will have some respiratory difficulty in breathing immediately after birth. For those patients, we will be giving this oxygen with using the oxygen hood. So next one more oxygen delivery system is AMBU bag. AMBU means artificial manual breathing unit. So this is the one. So it is a handheld. We can use it by placing in our hands, which is commonly used to provide positive pressure ventilation to patients who are not breathing on their own or not breathing adequately. If at all they are breathing, that is not adequate or sufficient for the body needs. So in this we can see this is the bag which is made of silicone, and this is the face mask which connects to the nose and mouth, and this is the outlet. Here if we want, we can connect to the oxygen cylinder. One more oxygen delivery device method is AMBU bag. So AMBU means artificial manual breathing unit. So it is a handheld device. So in the picture, if you can see it easily fits into your hands, and which is commonly used to provide positive pressure ventilation to patients who are not breathing on their own or not breathing adequately. So adequately means it is not sufficient to meet their body needs. So here the AMBU is having a reservoir bag, and it is connected to the patient's nose and mouth. This is face mask, and here from here we can connect to the small pipe, a small opening and one large opening is there. So we can connect it to a closed reservoir bag or a corrugated tube. Directly it will take the air from the atmosphere, or we can connect to a oxygen source. And one more oxygen delivery method is tracheostomy collar or mask. So this is the tracheostomy collar. It is inserted directed into the trachea, and when it is indicated, when it is used means for chronic oxygen therapy. The patient is in need of oxygen chronically, that is for more number of days, and the flow rate will be 8 to 10 liters, and it provides accurate fraction of inspired oxygen, and it provides good humidity, and it will be more comfortable and efficient from the patient side. One more oxygen delivery device is TPs. So when a patient on ventilator is having spontaneous respirations, we have to stop or wean the patient from ventilator. So the ventilator patient is having ET tube. So to the end of ET tube, we will be connecting this TPs. So here it is shown the tracheostomy tube. So we can use both in tracheostomy tube and ET tube end also. So it provides accurate fractional inspiration of inspired oxygen. So this T-piece is connected one end, this side to the tracheostomy tube or ET tube, and the other is for oxygen source and other is for reservoir, oxygen reservoir, that is either a bag or a corrugated rubber tube like this. And it also, T-piece also provides good humidity. So till now we have seen different types of oxygen delivery at atmospheric pressure, that is called orthobaric oxygen therapy. So now we will see another type, that is therapy. So what does it mean? In the name itself it is their meaning. Increased pressure, oxygen given at increased atmospheric pressure. So it aims at increasing in the partial pressure of oxygen, particularly dissolved oxygen, because it is unaffected by the hemoglobin concentration. So in this picture you can see the machine used for giving hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So amount of oxygen dissolved in the plasma depends on partial pressure. So normally plasma have 0.3 ml of dissolved oxygen per 100 ml per 100 mmHg PO2. So at 1 atmospheric pressure, inhalation of 100% oxygen can raise the arterial PO2 to a maximum of 673 mmHg. So how you got this value 673? So you have to do calculation on your own and find out the answer. So the maximum amount of oxygen that can be dissolved in plasma at 1 atmospheric pressure will be 673 into 0.003. That is 0.003 per 100 ml per 1 mm of Hg. So when you multiply that, you will be getting 2 ml per 100 ml of oxygen. So likewise at 2 atmospheric pressure, if you multiply 673 with 0.003 and 2, we will get 4 ml per 100 ml. So the normal demand of body tissues for oxygen is how much? It is only 5 ml per 100 ml. So it can be, this normal demand can be met only by the dissolved oxygen in the plasma if administered at atmospheric pressure of 2.5 or more. So there is no need to raise the atmospheric pressure more than 3. Only 2 to 3 atmospheric pressure is enough for giving the normal demand or the normal requirement of oxygen for the body tissues, that is 5 ml per 100 ml. So how you are getting this value? You have to do again the calculations, reminding your basics. So next coming to the indications for hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So these indications commonly include the type of hypoxia in which normal hemoglobin is not available to carry the oxygen to the tissues. So the main dependence is on dissolved oxygen in plasma. So in these type of conditions only we will be using hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So what are those? Most common one is carbon monoxide poisoning. Here, so there is no normal hemoglobin available for the oxygen to bind. And then infections like clostridial myonecrosis. Here what is happening? The entire muscle is being necrosed. So what happens? The blood supply to the muscle will be decreased. So that will be causing again decreased availability of hemoglobin for oxygen delivery to that tissue. So in that condition, for this muscle to get cured, the oxygen should be supplied. So that oxygen has to be dissolved in the blood under high pressure. And then in anemic hypoxia and decompression sickness and air embolism and the wounds with poor blood supply. And one important caution for the therapeutic use of hyperbaric oxygen is that it should not be used with pressure beyond 2 to 3 atmospheres and should not be used more than 5 hours because of high chance of developing O2 toxicity or oxygen toxicity. So what is that O2 toxicity? We'll see now. So if the concentration of oxygen which a patient is getting is not known, then the situation is similar to a drug being administered without knowing the dose, which can do harm if given more or provide insufficient effect if given less. Okay, so what it is? The concentration of oxygen which the patient is receiving, if that concentration is not known, that situation will be similar to a drug being administered without knowing the dose. Because if you take the drugs or medicine commonly taken, suppose paracetamol, if you take high dose, what happens? It will be doing harm to your body. So likewise, if given in more dosage, or provide insufficient, that is less than the required, that is paracetamol we will be taking 650 mg. If it is taken less than that, the effect is not there. So likewise, the concentration of oxygen should be monitored when you are giving the oxygen therapy. So if it is becoming more than required, then it will lead to oxygen. The mechanism of development of oxygen toxicity is that it is the oxygen is converted into active oxygen, that is superoxide anion, that is O2 minus, and which is a free radical, and also water H2O. So those will be causing the side effects. What are the side effects? The main is irritation of airways in the form of nasal congestion, sore throat, discomfort, sneezing and coughing, and bronchopneumonia, which will be initiated when the therapy is given for more than 24 hours, because the lung macrophages loses the capability to kill the bacteria and also decrease production of surfactant. And the next most important complication or side effect in newborns is ROP, retinopathy of prematurity, or retrolental fibroprasia, because the newborns are very sensitive, and what happens here, there is retinal neovascularization and proliferation of fibrovascular tissue, ultimately forming an opaque mass which leads to the bilateral permanent blindness. So that much dangerous this oxygen toxicity in the newborns. And one more complication is bronchopulmonary dysplasia, which is characterized by lung cyst and opacities. And lastly, nervous system complications. What happens in the CNS? Derangement of cerebral activity occurs with administration of hyperbaric oxygen. So at high pressures, dissolved O2 in plasma is greatly increased, which in turn causes rise in tissue PO2. So what happens? There will be production of free radicals, and also these free radicals oxidize the polyunsaturated fatty acids and oxidize the cellular enzymes, damaging the cellular metabolic system. So that's how in nervous tissue, which are very much susceptible because of their high lipid content, for this damage by the free radicals. So the symptoms are muscular twitching, tinnitus, convulsions and coma, and lastly death also may occur with the oxygen toxicity in these patients. Okay, the next important topic is artificial respiration. So when does the artificial respiration is given to a patient? When the patient is not at all breathing, is in unconscious state, but the heart continues to beat. In this condition, we should give artificial respiration. And the indications for the artificial respiration are drowning, suffocation in smoke, and the paralysis of respiratory muscles, and the electric shock, and in some accidents also we have to give artificial respiration. Coming to the types of artificial respiration, there are two types, manual and mechanical methods. In manual, again there are four types: Schafer's method or prone pressure method, Holger-Nielsen method or arm lift back pressure method, and Sylvester's method and or arm lift chest pressure method, and then mouth to mouth respiration. And in mechanical methods, there are tank respirators and ventilators. So we will see little bit details about this different types of methods. Before giving the artificial respiration, we have to take some precautionary measures, like any tight clothes on the patient should be loosened and the patient should be kept warm. Froth from the mouth and nose is to be clean. Any denture present in the patient's mouth should be removed. The patient is taken to a fresh atmospheric air. So the first method is Schafer's method. So here the doctor kneels near the patient's waist and he puts his palms on the patient's loin here, and the doctor bends forward with applying pressure over the loin. So when you apply pressure, what is happening? There is expiration of air from the lungs. So that's why we are giving pressure and then expiration is happening. That's why it is called active expiration. In the next picture, we see the doctor moves back from the bending position. He moves back, bends backward. And then what is happening when he lifts his hands from the loin? Automatically there will be passive inspiration because the air has gone out from the lungs in the previous step, and here the inspiration occurs passively when the pressure is removed by the resuscitator or doctor. So that's why it is called passive inspiration. So this is a prone pressure method, and the main disadvantage is that it is little bit abnormal. That is, the inspiration is passive and the expiration is active. And the next method is Holger-Nielsen method. Here the inspiration is actively done. The doctor kneels near the patient's head facing towards him, and doctor will pull his arms up. This pulling will cause inspiration to take place actively. Just lift the arms slightly up, and the doctor leaves his hands on the sides. Okay, so after the inspiration occurs, he leaves his hands on the side and his palms on the patient's scapulae, and bending forward, the doctor bends forward. He will apply pressure on the chest from the back. So this will cause expiration. So this is again active expiration. When you are giving the pressure, the expiration is taking place, and when you are just lifting the arms, the inspiration is taking passively. So this is very much useful in when the patient is in drowning, because it will cause the water also to come out of the lungs. And one more method is Sylvester method. Here what is there? We have to place the patient in supine position, and there is a pillow below the shoulder and neck should be fully extended. Okay, carefully observe the picture. We have placed the neck pillow below the shoulder and the neck will be extended. So if you place the pillow, automatically the neck will be extended. And what the doctor is doing, he is again kneeling near the patient's head and facing towards him. He is lifting the hands with holding the hands at the wrist, and by bending forward he will pull the patient arms up. This will cause inspiration. So actively the inspiration is taking place by lifting the hands of the patient, and then bending forward, the doctor bends forwards and he will put the hands over the chest of the patient, and deep pressure, he will apply deep pressure on the chest with the patient hand. So he is holding the patient's hand, keeping on the chest and giving the deep pressure. This will cause expiration. Okay, so here you can see the inspiration and expiration both are actively done in Sylvester method. And the next method is mouth-to-mouth respiration. So it is the best method of artificial respiration. Here again doctor kneels near the patient's neck facing towards him, and a pillow is placed below the shoulder so as to extend the neck fully. With left hand, patient's nostrils are closed and a tissue paper or handkerchief is put on the patient's mouth. Then doctor will blow expired air in the patient's mouth. This will cause inspiration. And by taking mouth away, expiration occurs passively. Advantages of this method are giving expired air which contains CO2. Also stimulates the patient's respiratory center, so that good ventilation is obtained by this mouth-to-mouth respiration. The expired air by the resuscitator or the doctor contains 16% oxygen, which is sufficient to revive the patient from his unconscious state. So this is a picture which shows the mouth-to-mouth respiration. The shoulder pillow is placed beneath the shoulder. The neck should be extended. Hold the nostrils, close the nostrils, and then place a paper or handkerchief and then give the expired air which blowing into the mouth of the patient. And the next one is the mechanical methods. So the most common one is the tank respirator, which is of not in regular use nowadays, and this is one of the type of drinker's method of tank respirator. So what happens, and another mechanical method I have told you is ventilators. So in the tank respirator, these are also called iron lung chambers previously. It consists of airtight chamber made of iron or steel. See here, you can see it is made up of iron or steel. And there are various types of mechanical respirators, like the most common drinker's respirator. So in this, the patient is kept inside the tank by placing the head outside the chamber. And in this method, we will be giving alternate positive and negative pressure breathing machines, which produces periodic inflation and deflation of the lungs. So, the tank respirator or drinker's respirator, what happens? Subject's body is placed within the tank, head protruded out, and the motor driven leather diaphragm, okay, placed opposite to the subject's head, moves back and forth to raise and lower the pressure within the tank. So in the picture, in the previous slide, I have shown you a motor driven leather diaphragm with blue colored one is there, that will be placed opposite to the subject's head, which moves back and forth to raise and lower the pressure. So inward movement of diaphragm develops positive pressure around the body and causes expiration, and outward movement of diaphragm develops negative pressure and causes inspiration. And one more type of artificial respiration is CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, which you have heard most commonly. So it is required in patients when both the heart and respiration stops, and also in conditions like ventricular fibrillation following a heart attack, and the victim of electrocution and drowning patients. So in these conditions, we will be using cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So we have to see the rule, otherwise we call it as a rule, maintain ABC. A means airway, B means breathing, C is circulation by giving cardiac massage. So airway is required in unconscious patients. So immediately tilt the head back with a hand under the neck to maintain an open airway. And breathing by artificial respiration method, most common one is mouth to mouth respiration. It should be immediately started. And first feel the carotid pulse. If it is present, then only continue AR. Otherwise, if the pulse is not felt, immediately start the cardiac massages or chest compressions. During the external chest compression, sternum should be depressed by 4 to 5 cm at a rate of 80 to 90 times per minute. The compression should be alternated with mouth-to-mouth respiration at rate of 1 ventilation to 5 chest compressions. This is how we will be doing the CPR chest compressions. The person or the doctor places the heel of one hand on the lower sternum above the xiphoid process, and the heel of other hand on the top of the first. Okay, so one hand heel over the lower sternum and other hand over the first hand. So they should be interlocked. The pressure is applied straight down, depressing the sternum 4 to 5 centimeters. So this is repeated again 80 to 90 times per minute, and it should be alternated with manual respiration in the ratio of 1:5. So even after doing the CPR, if you see these signs, you can confirm the patient is dead. So what are those signs? Fixed dilated pupils which are not reacting to light, no heart sounds heard, and there is no pulse and no recordable BP. So if the signs are present, you can confirm that patient is dead. Thank you all for listening to this long lecture. Thank you for your patience.